Venezuela is on edge this morning after gunfire was heard near the presidential palace. This was just hours after Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in as interim president. It comes amid growing uncertainty over Venezuela's future after the U.S. attacked the country and captured its leader, Nicolás Maduro, and his wife, Celia Flores. They, of course, were brought to the U.S. to face drug-related charges, with both pleading not guilty during their first court appearance yesterday. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez joins us from Colombia's border with Venezuela. Gabe, good morning. What more can you tell us first about this gunfire that was heard in the capital?
Oh, hi there, Savannah. Good morning. The gunfire rang out near the presidential palace in Caracas, and witnesses say that security forces were firing at unspecified, unidentified drones. Now, two White House officials tell NBC News that the U.S. was not involved. So there's still a lot of questions about what exactly happened. However, it really speaks to just how on edge this entire region is, especially inside Venezuela following the capture of Nicolás Maduro and that U.S. operation.
And Gabe, we know as you get any more information, you'll bring it to us. But we also saw Delcy Rodriguez being sworn in as interim president yesterday. I mean, this gunfire was just hours after that. She, of course, was Maduro's vice president. How is she expected to navigate the next few days and weeks? Tell us what her message was to the U.S. and how people there in Venezuela are receiving this fact that she is now the interim president, a sort of an extension of the Maduro regime.
Well, Savannah, right. Well, she is walking a very fine line, Savannah. You're right. Rodriguez, initially after the attacks, she described the U.S. operation as a barbaric attack. She was very, she condemned it, and she softened her tone just a bit on Sunday, releasing a statement saying that she was looking to collaborate with the U.S. Now, the White House, the Trump administration has said that she's on board with what the U.S. is trying to do. But again, she's walking a very fine line here. What's also interesting, Savannah, is a U.S. official tells NBC News that a recent classified intelligence assessment by the U.S. determined that Rodriguez and other top members of the Maduro regime were actually best positioned to lead this government going forward and maintain stability. And that was a factor in why President Trump did not back the opposition leader, Machado. So moving forward, it is unclear what Rodriguez's relationship with the United States will be. But the White House is insisting that she will help the U.S. As we move forward here.
Gabe, also tell us what you're seeing on the ground. I mean, it's incredible that we have you there. You're able to report on the situation right at this border, as close as you can get, basically. What are you hearing from Venezuelans who are some fleeing their country, or maybe those who want to return now?
Well, Savannah, there's a profound sense of uncertainty here, as we were just discussing. It's unclear what happens in Venezuela in the weeks and months ahead. Yes, this is the border. This is the Colombian border with Venezuela. Thousands of Venezuelans cross through here each day, some to visit family members, some to work. Some now also are leaving for good while all this uncertainty plays out. We spoke with one family yesterday that was really shaken up. They were overwhelmed over the recent events. They were coming with luggage. They were trying to live with family members here in Colombia. They weren't sure when they were going to return to Venezuela, but they were also very reluctant to speak on camera and say anything critical of the government because they still have family members inside Venezuela. And to that end, Savannah, what we were discussing about Delcy Rodriguez, the Venezuelan government has actually issued a decree as well. Even though she's offering to collaborate with the U.S., this decree orders police to arrest anyone inside Venezuela that is seen as supporting the U.S. attack in any way, who's involved in supporting the U.S. attack in any way. So that's likely one of the reasons why you haven't seen any anti-Maduro demonstrations inside the country.
Such important color from the ground, Gabe. Also, quickly, the Trump administration threatening other countries in the area, like where you are in Colombia, like Mexico, like Cuba. How's the region responding?
Well, certainly a war of words of sorts is erupting between President Trump and Colombia's President Gustavo Petro. Let's see, President Trump says that the government in Cuba will likely soon fall. He has railed against the government of Mexico for its alleged involvement with drug cartels. And yes, he has said that the Colombian president is, quote, a sick man involved in drug trafficking. Sharp responses from all of those governments denouncing U.S. involvement in the region.
All right. Gabe Gutierrez, thank you very much. Fantastic reporting, and we'll have more.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.